Hello everyone, today we have to continue to present one of the most important topics of plant disease, which known as plant disease epidemiology. Outlines will include epidemiology of plant disease, elements of an epidemic, and measurement of disease. First, we must know the difference between epidemic and epidemiology. Epidemic, that means we have an aggressive pathogen that can infect a lot of number of plants over a large area in a short time. Such diseases known as epidemic disease. But epidemiology is the study of factors that lead to an increase in disease in a population of plants. And understanding the reason why disease increase in population of plants and what can influence those increase can contribute to decision of plant disease management. So it's very important to study any epidemic disease and the factors that can affect on this change on the epidemic diseases. Disease becomes important when the damage caused by pathogen increases and has a bad social and economic impacts. There are numerous examples of epidemic plant disease that have had a bad impact on human history. Well-known examples is Irish potato famine, which happened in Ireland in year 1845. This epidemic disease caused by fungus Phytophthora infestans, which spread over a large area of potato in Ireland in a short time and lead to hunger and followed by starvation, which resulted in the death of many Irish people in this time. We know this figure from the previous lecture. This is the triangle disease, which show us the three important elements affect on the development of any plant disease. Disease occur on plant when a virulent pathogen and susceptible host interact in a conducive environment. But actually, the interaction of component of plant diseases, these three main elements of a triangle, can be expanded to include other elements, especially time and human. We can consider the time as a fourth component of plant disease development because time affects on each event of disease cycle, and also human considered as a fifth component because human can affect on each component of disease triangle. So the interaction of 4 or 5 components can be visualized as a pyramid and referred to as disease pyramid. That means we have now two expressions, disease triangle and disease pyramid. Disease triangle, if we talk about the three main elements can develop the disease on the plant: host, pathogen, and favorable environmental conditions. But if we talk about the disease pyramid, that means we talk about the 5 elements which can affect on the development of the disease, including the host, pathogen, and favorable conditions, time, and human. Now we have to study each element of triangle and study their factors on the development of plant disease. First, we talk about the host factors. Several factors of a particular host plant play an important role in the development of epidemic. Level of genetic resistance, type of crop, age of plant. Level of genetic resistance. Some host plant carrying specific resistant genes known as resistant plant don't allow a pathogen to become established in them, and thus no epidemic can develop. But other host plant known as susceptible, which lacking for gene resistance against pathogen, provide the ideal substrate for establishment and development of new infection. And therefore, in the presence of susceptible host and virulent pathogen and favorable environment, favor for the development of disease epidemic. Second important factor affect of the disease development, age of plant. Plant change in their reaction to disease with age. In some plants, pathogen combinations, the hosts are susceptible only during the growth period and become resistant during the adult period. For example, root rot disease, downy mildew disease, viral infection. The plant in the young growth are more susceptible to infection than the adult age. In different cases, for example, rust disease and post-harvest disease, the adult plant are particularly more susceptible for infection than the young stage. The second element can affect on the disease development is pathogenic factors, which include level virulence, quantity of inoculum near host, type of reproduction, mode of spread of the pathogen. Level of virulence, you know that the pathogen population have different level of virulence, but we care about the virulent strains or races because they have ability to make infection on the host rapidly and to produce a large amount of the inoculum. Second factor, quantity of inoculum near host. We here talk about the pathogen propagules that are initial for make the infection in the epidemic disease, and the greater number of pathogen propagules that are present near of the host or reach early to the host can increase the chance of an epidemic greatly. Third factor is type of reproduction. Some plant pathogenic fungi or bacteria and virus have short reproduction cycle and therefore are polycyclic pathogen that can produce many generations in a single growing season. And this is pathogen have a chance to make an epidemic disease because they can repeat the infection on a lot of number of hosts. Second type or other group of pathogen which can produce only one reproductive cycle per growing season, known as monocyclic pathogen. This is type of pathogen increase over years, not a few months. The last factor affect on the epidemic disease according to pathogen is mode of spread. Some other spores of many plants, pathogenic fungi, are released and dispersed by air or strong winds over distance. Other most important group of pathogen, virus particle, are carried by airborne vectors from infected plant to healthy one, and this is viral disease as a polycyclic disease can spread on a lot of number of plant in short time and make an epidemic disease. The third element can affect on the development of epidemic disease is the environmental factors, especially moisture and temperature. These two weather factors are often the most important factors affecting the length of disease cycle. And we mean with the length of disease cycle the time from the infection by inoculum to produce of more inoculum. Here, this figure shows us the development of potato light blight disease according to the growing season. Here, the infection in May and June are limited because the unfavorable condition affect or influence on pathogen development. But in November, December, we see a high rate of the infection because there are the favorable condition and help the pathogen to develop rapidly and make a new reproduction and repeat the infection on other plant. The information about the environmental factors can affect on the disease development help us to make a modeling and forecasting system or programs which predict the probability of outbreaks of epidemic disease. Now the last two factors can affect on development of plant disease, time and human. Time is actually interact with the three main elements in triangle: host, pathogen, and environment. When we talk about the season of the year, that means we talk about the favorable condition in each growing cycle and also the age of the plant. Appearance of vectors, this is depend on the type of pathogen. Some pathogen need vectors to transmit from infected plant to healthy one, and we must care about the favorable condition for these vectors. The second factor, human factors. Human are actually have a direct or indirect effects on plant disease epidemics. Some of the human activities favoring and some reducing the frequency, the rate of epidemic. For example, use of pathogen-free or treated propagative material can reduce the chance of epidemic greatly. Also, some cultural practice, a high level of nitrogen filtration and overhead irrigation increase the possibility and severity of epidemics. Disease control measures such as chemical and biological control, use of resistant varieties, reduce or eliminate the epidemic. Okay, now after we study the disease development and factors affect on the disease development, we reach to our second part of the lecture, measurement of plant disease. To measure the disease in infected area, we can use three methods: disease incidence, disease severity, and yield loss. The difference between now we can summarize the objectives of study the plant disease epidemiology in 4 points. First, we have to understand plant disease epidemic and how can occur in the nature and how they can be monitored and analyzed. Second, we have to learn the disease cause crop losses and how these losses are quantified and predicted. Especially we use the study of the epidemiology and factors affect on disease development to set the strategy of plant disease control. And the end we have learned how to use some statistical procedures for quantifying and comparing and predicting epidemics. At the end, thank you for your attention, and I wait for your questions at any time.